All right, I think we're going to get started. If I can have everybody's attention, please. So, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Sean Bradford. I'm with EPCOR. I'm an EPCOR employee. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Services. With me tonight is Joe Connor. He's an outside regulatory counsel that we brought on to address the situation that we're facing with Proposition 415. This is a fairly short PowerPoint presentation, walk through some of the facts related to the case. I'm going to present a few things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Joe. At the end, we're going to have time for questions and answers. We don't want to interrupt each other. We don't want to speak over each other. We're going to try to keep this as civil and as managed as possible. I'm going to call on people to speak one at a time at the end. We have this hall until 7:30. So we'll stay here until 7:30 if you'd like us to stay. But when you run out of questions, we'll call it a night, okay? So I'm just going to jump into it. So we're here to talk about Proposition 415. The company has created a political action committee, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We've done that for the sole purpose to educate voters on Proposition 415 and why it's wrong for the city. So this is the agenda. I'm going to talk through a few things. Why EPCOR is not for sale. We're a well-run, regulated entity here in Arizona. We're a standalone U.S. corporation that has a Canadian parent. We don't hide from any of that. We're not interested in being driven out of business. This is akin to you owning a home, and the city wants to build a road through your neighborhood, and they want to take your house away from you, and you don't want to sell it. We're not for sale. We want to stay in this community. We've got 30 employees that live and breathe inside of Bullhead City. Most of them are in the back of this room. They're not interested in selling this business. So if the city wants to take us over, there's a process called eminent domain. They can go down that road. They've created a proposition to get voter authorization to do that. It's going to be a long, protracted process. Joe's going to walk through what that looks like. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to understand we're not for sale. They're going to have to take the utility from us. The city, in our opinion, and I'm not an attorney, but the city, in our opinion, and we filed as TAC, our Political Action Committee, filed a complaint with the AG's office accusing the city of illegally electioneering. We think we have numerous examples, and it was a 56-page report we sent to the Attorney General, where the city advocated for a position on a ballot initiative. That's against the law. Can't do it. They can educate. They can explain, this is what we're asking, and this is why we're asking it. They can't advocate for a position. And in our opinion, it's clear that the elected officials and city leadership has done that. Numerous instances. You all don't have to agree with me. That complaint's been filed at the Attorney General's office. And it's important to note that the Goldwater Institute, who's a bit of a political watchdog, filed a letter, a blog on their website, accusing the city of doing exactly that, illegally electioneering. We'll talk a little bit about the quick take. The city's talked about if they get voter authorization to take our utility over, they're going to immediately seek possession of the assets. And that's got a lot of issues associated with it, and Joe's going to talk through that in a little bit more detail. The other thing is the city hasn't been responding to information requests. So we filed an information request back in June, early June, June the 5th, one in early July. And just today, I haven't opened it, so I don't want to say that they've responded to everything, but the city sent us a CD with additional information, but in their cover letter today, they still note that it's a partial response to our questions. So we're asking for information from the city to better understand the position that they've taken. And as it relates to the Raftelis report, you'll hear Joe talk a lot about that. We want to understand the information and the data that they used to determine their value, because we think there's a lot of flaws in that process. But to date, again, subject to check with the CD that I got today, I don't know if the city's responded yet, but it's been quite a while. Eminent domain is routinely a mistake for cities and towns, and Joe will give numerous examples of where the city thought they could buy the utility for $1 and it ended up costing $5. Or in this instance, the city thinks that we're worth $55 million, and we think we're north of 130. Pretty big disconnect. That's a pretty big impact to you as customers. Because you have to understand, if they acquire the system and they float bonds, you pay for the bonds. Not the city, you do. And you need to understand what those costs are going to look like for you. We'll talk a little bit about Raftelis, what they got right, what they got wrong, and then we'll talk about next steps in the process.